June 7th is the California's primary day, and the people have been casting votes leading to the day.
California couple of voters were forced to vote electronically and misled about what paper ballot is. What's the story behind it?
A Chinese internet influencer ran into a big incident. Welcome to Wei and Kathy Show. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
I'm Kathy Zhang.
So tomorrow is the California primary day. And actually, as time goes by, more and more Chinese Americans become much more politically active, at least on the casting vote level, right? So not only many Chinese Americans, they get organized, they go to the county, they check the database, they try to find out whether the ballot data is valid and so on and so forth. They also get together, set up a nonprofit organization, develop app to track the data and so on and so forth. And also they produce videos like we show you this a video called Happy Goose, which has to do with the showing casting vote in person versus a mail ballot. What would happen behind the scene? And so in particular today, Kathy got a complaint call from two of our audience who complain about the issue they run into when they cast their primary ballot today. So Kathy followed through and find out what happened. And then before we jump into that, I just want to show you a very, very dramatic story. Okay, dramatic story in China last night. It's just a China's biggest internet influencer got cut off from the internet just because of a ice cream cake.
Yeah,
so
why?
Yeah, what's the story of that? So Kathy, how about let's just jump into the Fremont, okay, the Fremont ballot casting issue. What happened?
Yeah, so if for our audience who do not really know where Fremont is, it's in Northern California, we call it East Bay. It's across from San Francisco. So in Fremont, there are more and more Asian residents, including Chinese Americans, Indian Americans, more people moving to that area, mostly from high-tech industry. So yesterday I was actually contacted by people who, they served as citizen observers at a polling place and just noticed a very disturbing experience by a couple of voters. So I talked to the voters, Mr. and Mrs. Chen. They are immigrants originally from Taiwan, but have been here for many years. And both of them wanted to vote by paper ballot, but one of them were forced to vote electronically and provisionally, okay? But they are both properly registered voters. But the husband was forced to vote provisionally by electronic. And the wife, Mrs. Chang, was also actually, not unknowingly forced to vote electronically and was misled to believe she was voting paper ballot. So let's hear their experience first from Mrs. Chang, Mr. Chen.
June 5th, Sunday, went in with my family to the polling place to cast our votes. And when I went in, the volunteer asked me if I wanted to vote electronically or using a paper ballot, and I opted for paper ballot. After they asked me for my name, they printed out a paper ballot, but it was only one sheet, card A. It only had the first sheet of the ballot. So I asked them about it, if it's missing other pages. Several volunteers went in on the computer, tried to figure out, and they tried to print out the rest of the pages. But they just ran, and it seemed like they were running into a lot of issues, whatever problems they were facing, and eventually they were able to print out the rest of the pages. But one of the pages of the ballot had the wrong information, like it wasn't for my district. The candidates were all different, and it didn't match my sample ballot that I had with me. At this point, maybe like 40 minutes has passed. They kept apologizing, and they asked me if it's okay to vote on the machine. to get it through because they were having trouble printing out the correct ballots. And so I agreed. I finally went in on the machine and did the vote there.
And so what's Mrs. Chen's experience there?
And told me to vote on the screen. I said, but I wanted a paper ballot. And he said, well, after you vote on the screen, there's going to be a paper that's printed out, and that's a paper ballot. So since I haven't been voting in person for many years, I just took his words and thought, this is a paper ballot. Although I was prepared to use a pen. So I just voted on the machine and printed it out and dropped it into a turquoise ballot box on my own. But at that time, I was already done, and I saw my husband coming out from another room saying, part of my ballot is missing. So I saw his paper ballot, and then I realized, okay, so there is a real paper ballot, and somehow it's not the same process as mine.
So, both Mr. and Mrs. Chen, when there, they both requested paper ballot, but each of them were all, instructed actually to vote electronically. So Mrs. Chen wasn't able, she witnessed her husband, how the poll workers struggled to print out the correct ballot, but eventually she had to go back to the car because they have a toddler, with them. And so Mr. and Mrs. Chen, I asked them, is their first time to vote? They said no. They have been voting for years, but in recent years, they have been voting just by mail-in ballot. So they were not clear about the current situation of the in-person voting. And then I asked them why you decided to do in-person voting this year.
I've heard a lot of experiences and about how the mail-in ballot is. You could have a lot of human error. So I learned about the process and decided that, I should do my part to vote in person and try to reduce as many human errors in the voting process as possible so that there's a higher chance of my voice being heard in the voting process. And also, I want a different administration who can really work for the people of California. As Asian American, I definitely feel there's an urgency for our voices to be heard as well. We're often the victims of violence and robberies and theft, right? So I want someone who can actually address this public safety issue and also homeless issue, drug issue, kids' education issue. I want to make sure that people elected into the office can prioritize, and this administration is not doing that. So yeah, that's the main motivation for me to go in person.
Okay, and Mr. Chang, he basically was, influenced by his wife because his wife did a lot of research. Actually, she watched the Happy Goose channel about this flow chart comparing the vote by mail versus vote in person, and that's how they decided to vote in person. And then I asked them, why did you decide to speak out? Because usually Asian Americans, especially Chinese Americans, are very quiet about things that they encounter. So let's take a lesson.
Yeah, I mean, it was frustrating, obviously. A quick 5-minute thing, dragged on to like 45 minutes. It seems like the volunteers felt really bad. They kept apologizing. They couldn't get me the right ballots. Yeah, it was frustrating that this wasn't a better planned out and worked out process.
Yeah, I mean, I give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not doing this on purpose, but I felt I was tricked, really. I did ask twice, is this a paper ballot? They told me it is, and I just trusted them. A little bit disappointed overall.
Really appreciate you take my interview to talk about your story experience. So, why do you think it's important to let more people know about it?
Well, I mean, it's obviously democracy is only democracy when the voting process works and everyone's voices get heard. So if there's an issue, there's a problem in that process. I think it's paramount that people know about it and we address it.
Well, for the same reason, I want to make sure that this is a true democracy where everyone's voice gets heard and every vote is valuable. We don't want anyone's voice to be covered up.
Yeah, so Mr. and Mrs. Cheng are concerned about whether their voice can really count. And so in regards to their experience, I interviewed a constitutional lawyer whose name is Mark Muser, who is very knowledgeable about election laws. As a matter of fact, Muser ran for Secretary of State in California in previous years. And this year, he is also running, but for another position is the U.S. Senate for U.S. Senator for California. So Mark Muser, after listening to what Mr. and Mrs. Cheng experienced, and he made his observation comments.
Well, there's a lot of confusion these days because every county is a little bit different in how they are doing it. And it's one of the strengths of our system is that every county has their own system of how they do it. The fact that you get two different people with two different experiences in the exact same polling place is very disturbing. It indicates that the county hasn't done the best job of educating their poll workers on how to handle situations when a voter asks for a paper ballot. And that is one of the problems that I have seen over the years is that because we're changing our laws so frequently, it's really hard on the counties to train their employees best on all the variations and the new laws and everything like that. And so it's just another example of why we need to have some stability and integrity in our election system.
And I asked Mark about how does he think the election system overall in California.
Well, I mean, California has the worst run elections in the nation. MIT, Caltech show that year after year we have a poorly administered election process. A lot of it is because of all the various ways that we vote, how we are constantly changing the rules, how we don't clean our voter rolls. It's not the best system out there. But what I tell people when I'm out there talking to them about elections, the most important thing is to get out and vote and to make sure that your vote counts. And so, after you vote, you need to go online and make sure that they received your ballot and that your ballot was counted. And if not, then you need to go to the register of voters and get an explanation as to why your ballot was not counted. Only a small number of ballots that are not counted, but I do encourage everybody to be proactive in no matter what way they choose to vote, make sure that their ballot was received and that their ballot was counted.
In talking about voter roll cleanup, and some of our viewers may remember there was a case brought up by the Election Integrity Project California. They sued the California Secretary of State regards to the voter roll issue, and the court actually favored them. But why in California in various counties, at least we know from people who did the investigation, is in counties like Santa Clara and Monterey, the voter rolls have not been cleaned up. And why is that? And Mark Muser explained.
That decision was brought down in January of 2019. And what the decision was is that the counties were to send what's called a postcard to all these 1.5 million people who shouldn't have been on the voter rolls. And if those people did not vote over the course of the next 4 years, then those people would be removed from the voter rolls. Well, that's going to be January of 2023. And so we have to wait till January 2023 before we start seeing those names come off the ballots.
Okay, so that's why people have to vote, have to wait until next January. So I asked Mr. and Mrs. Chang if they have a chance to, speak to the Secretary of State and the Alameda County Register of Voters. What would they say to them?
I want them to check IDs, first of all, just to make sure that the person voting is the person, right? It doesn't make sense that we don't check IDs. And also, I want the poll workers to be more informed and better trained so that they know how to resolve the issues. And I don't want a provisional ballot if I'm a properly registered voter. I think it's a very important process that really needs to be figured out. And I want the officials to be accountable for their actions.
Yeah, I think that the workers, volunteers definitely need more comprehensive training on, whether you're voting via machine or paper ballot. They should have proper training to handle either of those cases. And the whole process, whether it's voting via machine, and then you get a piece of kind of like a receipt after it comes out, or if it's a paper ballot, that looks like the sample ballot you get in the mail. I think there should be more transparency and maybe explanation or just education on what the process is with that piece of paper and the information on it, how it goes through each stage and how each vote gets recorded. There should probably be a better transparency to the public about that. And so you know exactly how your vote is getting counted, and via the different methods, how they should technically arrive all, the same results. But I'm not sure if that's very clear right now.
So, obviously a lot of people have concerns about election integrity, transparency. So I asked Mark Muser, are people just, too much concerned, over-concerned, or just what he thinks on this subject?
There are a lot of problems with the system as it is, especially since the state of California does not do their job to clean the voter rolls. And as such, we see a lot of problems. But what the thing that I tell people is that the most important thing is for people to get out and vote. Until we replace the elected officials and put people in who actually care about integrity of our elections, the law is what the law is. And this is what the law is right now. And rather than be concerned about, this might happen or that might happen, what needs to happen is we need to make sure that our friends, our neighbors, get to the polls and vote. And that's the most important thing, is everybody needs to reach out to their friends and family and make sure they vote. Because if we go and vote, if the silent majority actually votes, we can vote out most of these bad politicians who are not concerned with the integrity of our elections. The amount of people who are failing to vote would far surpass the election irregularities that we hear and think might be happening. So the most important thing that I tell everybody is to get out and vote, and that's what they need to do.
All right.
Okay.
So and what do you think? A lot of people are concerned about the election integrity. Some people say, what does it do good? What good does it do if the system is not fixed, right? I might as well not to vote. But Mark just said, you heard how he thinks, and I just wonder how our viewers think of this, point of view.
Yeah, and Don Glover, you ask, is this Republican County or Democrat County? I can answer you. Unfortunately, in Northern California, it's all Democratic county. We got no Republican county here. Okay, so answer your question. Yes, it's Democratic county.
Yeah, but Mr. and Mrs. Chang wanted to make sure. They told me, they just wanted to let people know, no matter which party you belong to or you favor, election integrity is just paramount for any
Right.
voters, and we can see that. Actually, we haven't reported on our English this show yet, right? About in Georgia, one of the counties in Georgia is the Cobb County, in the second district, when they have some very disturbing vote counting in the district second of the DeKalb County. They counted 3 times so far. The first time is the machine counting. The second, the third are the just a hand count. And the difference just doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
And you want just maybe we talk a little bit about it, since we haven't really talked about it, right? So in this county, they have like 3 candidates, and the 2 of the candidates, they're it's the first count on May 24th. They have huge difference in terms of how many votes they got, right? But then after a few days, June 1st, they did a hand count. One of the candidate initially had over 5,000 votes, became less than 4,000. Then the other one had only 3,000 votes in the first count. And at the second count, which is a hand count, more than doubled, 6,650
Yeah,
votes.
that's not margin of error. Okay, there's something's wrong there. Something's very, very fishy there.
And that county is Democratic county. Not that county. That election is actually the Democratic primary. It's within the Democratic Party. So, it doesn't really matter which party it is.
Well, surprisingly, Drake 125, and you wrote that in Fremont County, 28.8% of the people voted Democrat in the last presidential election, and 68.5% vote for Republican. Really?
Really?
I'm very surprised. Okay, this is San Francisco Bay Area, as we all know it. Every congressional representative are from Democratic Party, and so.
Oh, but I think maybe Draker was talking about Fremont County, Colorado. I saw you say Colorado. It's not Colorado, it's California.
Right,
Fremont, California.
Yeah, that's where, okay, it's called Fremont, the city of Fremont. Okay, the county is called Alameda County. And, city of Fremont is known for the first Tesla, car manufacturing, factory there. Okay, to produce the first Tesla out of there.
Yeah, it was then, now it's moved to Texas.
Yeah, now it's moved to Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
So yeah, that explains it. Otherwise, I would be really, really surprised that a county just near where I live is completely different from what I thought it is. But have you talked to the it's called a register of voters office.
Yeah, actually after I talked to the voters, the first thing I did was to contact the Alameda County Registrar of Voters. I called them, left a message, sent them an email. So far, I have not got any response. But I will continue to follow up because
we'll go after them.
Yeah, because I received another message just a couple of hours ago saying that today another voter went to the same voting center, encountered another weird thing, which is he or she was required to put off her cell phone because according to what I know in California, you can take your cell phone, and they encourage you to take a selfie after you vote to tell share on the social media saying I voted, instead of the traditional round like the sticker, right? They encourage that, but this voting center just required people saying, and I got a recording on that saying that because there's a observer helped out this voter eventually. So just something very weird. We have to be cautious about it. What's happening in those voting centers?
Yeah, we'll do our best to go after them. And also, just so you know that many Chinese Americans from our Chinese show, now they come to realize that how important the issue is and what's their, their own duty as a free citizen. So they are keeping it really, just pay attention to this. And this complaint actually came from, our effort of calling for people's attention to the election issue. So yeah, same with you guys, right? Let's just all be vigilant, safeguard our freedom. And yeah, that's that.
Yeah, and otherwise it will happen just like the story we will be sharing, right? It's when it went viral these couple of days.
Okay, so and then Ting Ting, you said, can I say I smell BS? Oh, I understand how you feel about that. Okay, so let's just we'll stay on top of this. Okay, we'll bring you an update if we find the new information. So now let's move on to another very, very funny story.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting story. It's a big issue in China. It's been reported by Wall Street Journal and CNN, New York Times, and so on and so forth.
But they all behind the Waze Chinese report, right?
I'm among one of the first reporters, okay? I broke the news the day before, and they only just reported today. So what happened? What happened? Okay, June 4th, as you saw our show before, June 4th is a sensitive period of time. The government really, really hate people to remember this anniversary.
The Chinese government.
The Chinese government, yes, the Chinese government. So as we reported to you last time, the government censoring machine, apparatus have like tens of thousands of taboo words in the system, so that you type anything, it just got to wipe out right away.
It's my duty. It's wiped out.
Yeah, if you remember that. Okay, now this young influencer. His nickname is called the Lipstick Brother. He was really, really good in recommend lipsticks to girls. Girls love him, okay? And his success of selling lipsticks and get onto the Guinness World Record. How many fans does he have? Remember, the biggest fan is Elon Musk now. He got 96 million fans, okay, on Twitter. And this young guy, 29-year-old, he got 170 million people.
Oh, that's in China.
In China following him. Okay, all right. So on Friday night, his job is selling stuff. Okay, selling stuff, identify great stuff. Sometimes actually paid by the advertiser. Okay, he said this is so great, and this is the reason why it's so great. You guys have to buy it. Okay, and after he finished that, the goods gone, and then somebody tried to have him, some advertiser have him sell some cake. All right, it's ice cream cake. So he put that ice cream cake there, and he used the Oreo. It's actually Oreo biscuit. Okay, those are wrong type.
Oreo cookie?
Oreo cookie, yes, Oreo cookie. He got this, how to say, full Oreo cookie on the side of the cake.
As the wheels?
As the wheels.
Yeah, you can see that.
You can see that. And on top of it is probably some type of, I don't know, it's either strawberry or some kind of chocolate. They got a little how to say, stick, type of cookie. Stick to it. That's his little tank. This is a young man, right? Man like canoe, like a tank, and he just make that. So while he was showcasing, how cute this little tank cookie, cake is, the streaming was cut off. And he was surprised. He just, typed to his followers. He said, some, back server problem. Stay tuned. We're gonna come back. And then he waited several hours. He realized, oh boy, I really touched some very, very sensitive nerve.
You cannot never come back.
He probably will never come back. So he just say goodbye, take care, later. He got off. He got off on Friday. Today's Monday. He never got back. This guy is live streaming, selling goods for 6 hours every single day. Now he's gone for 3 days. So what happened?
Yeah, in the Gothic drink comes saying, why are you talking about cookies?
Why are we talking about cookies? Okay, you guys know this, right? The June 4th, the Tiananmen Square, you got this tank man, remember? The tank rolling on the Tiananmen Square, and then this young man tried to block the tank. We all understand what tank means to this June 4th massacre on the Tiananmen Square, okay? And then, so the tank become a sensitive thing. You don't mention, it's my duty. You don't post any like a meme of a bicycle. Of course, you don't mention anything about the June 4th, and you cannot even mention like 8 to the power of 2, because 8 times 8 is 64. 64 means June 4th. All right, of course, you cannot mention tank. But this not poor, this very, very successful young man, he was born in 1992, 3 years after the Tiananmen Square massacre. And the people like him, virtually 99%, maybe 98% of people like him in China have no idea that the Tiananmen massacre existed. You know, I didn't believe this myself before. 3 or 4 years ago, I asked around, and then when the young people said, you know, I never heard about this Tiananmen Square massacre. What do you mean? I was really, really shocked. Now, if I found someone, young people said, oh, I heard about that, I would be really shocked.
Right. Let me just insert an episode. That's years back. Okay. At that time, Nancy Pelosi was very supportive of, the human rights in China. Right. So one time she shared like this tankman picture, saying after she came back from China. Right. And she said, I asked some Chinese young people about what this is, and nobody can really answer.
Yeah.
What it is.
It's the fact.
Yeah, disregard, how you feel about Nancy Pelosi, but that was the fact that she, as a American politician, experienced in China. Those young people, nobody knows what this tankman means.
Okay. So what's interesting is afterwards, okay, after the live stream was cut off, remember, he got so many followers. All across China, the young people started asking, what happened? What is that tank? What happened to that tank? What's the big deal about tank?
And this influencer probably think he had such a creative idea, right?
Yeah, he thought, cake and Oreo cookie and create a tank. Isn't that fun? Okay, now the curiosity has driven so many Chinese young people are searching for the answer. So what is this June 4th issue? What is the matter behind this tank thing, this tank cut off? So the government got exactly the contrary of what they want.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what happened, in the last few days. So this is really a joke, okay? This make the headline, not headline, many, even Western media, and people are talking about this over the internet a lot. Of course, not in China, outside of China. So this is the moral, okay? The success of the CCP's, sealing off or completely blocking off the news about June 4th is a failure of blocking the June 4th. Why? Because this young guy, his name is Li, okay, Li Jiaqi. His name is Li Jiaqi. This young guy, this Li, because he's he has the result of the party's success. The party managed to have him completely forget or not know about this June 4th. That's why he created this tank at the date of June 4th, and then created this big debacle for the party. So the party's success created the party's failure. So then what happened to all the other influencers of China at this time? It's so ironic, right? So this is people are creating a name called the Li's paradox. Because if you want to completely stay safe, you want to avoid all the truth that the regime want to hide, you have to understand those truths completely.
So that
in order to steer clear of it, right?
Right.
So this is called the Li's paradox. Now it's spreading in China, become viral. And another commentator said this, I think make a lot of sense. I will read it to you. It says basically in China, no matter how successful you are, no matter how big your business is, no matter how many followers you have in China, you could be terminated any moment.
Yeah, exactly. It's what's happening in Shanghai, right? Shanghai, is so prosperous, the biggest
well
off, but then just overnight, the authority just saying, you cannot go out, you cannot have food, and they can just do it. I remember someone, said, in Shanghai, people are just have everything, like just so poor, what they only left was money. Okay, but now they have money, they cannot buy food. So that's what the totalitarian dictatorship can do to people, and that's why we are sharing this. And sometimes, things just happen for a reason. When it's a bad thing, it seems to be a bad thing, but it could turn out to be a good thing, right? It's just what happened in the voting center in Fremont. but it really, just make people feel like they wanted to do more to ensure the voting rights and the voting integrity.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
And also, this incident showed that how vulnerable the tyrants are, right? They're so weak. They're so vulnerable. They're so timid. Okay, everybody thinks they're so powerful. Okay, the June 4th has passed for 33 years. A lot of people lamented that they are, the dark force is so strong. Okay, nobody can shake them. They're still so strong today, but in their mind, somebody who don't believe that. Okay, who are they? The CCP themselves.
yeah.
They're so timid. They're so fearful. Okay. Now between the party and the people, it's not it's not a issue for who are braver. Rather, it's an issue for who are more scared. The party is very, very scared. That's why that's what we can see. Such a powerful regime are very, very weak internally, and they can fall, just collapse just like that. Just like 1989 in the Soviet, East, the communist bloc of the Soviet Union. And so good people need to stay faithful and stay strong and persist through the dark time.
Yeah, and that reminds me of my interview with Mr. Sampu, the political analyst in Hong Kong now, exiled in Taiwan. And he said, two things, right? The price for freedom is to be alert. And the secret to freedom is to have courage. And I think it will also add truth. When people know the truth and then have the courage, then we can have the freedom.
Yeah, so Ting Ting, you wrote that you said, I was a very young girl when it happened, the June 4th massacre, right? My dad taught me every year until he passed away. Yeah, okay.
Good for your dad.
Yeah, and
good
Louis,
for Ting Ting.
And Luis Fernandez, you wrote that actually we should never forget China. Did have patriots that stood against the tanks and stood against the CCP. Yes. And Patrick, you wrote that can fool some people all of the time, all the people some of the time, but not all of the people all of the time.
Yeah, well said.
Yep, well said. All right, so these are the two stories that we'll bring you today, and let's stay vigilant. And,
stay alert, vigilant, and know about the truth and have the courage.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Have a good night, and I will see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Is a ballot cast in an envelope better than cast in person? What happens once a ballot is mailed back or dropped in the drop box? The core of our election system is to have ballots correctly reflect the wishes of the voter. Only then can we ensure consent of the governed. Learn how ballots are counted and why it is critically important to cast your ballot in person at a vote center. Search Happy Goose on Rumble and watch illustrated videos. Your vote is important. Make sure it counts.